Yeah.
We get it, dude. You're better than us.
Some evergreen webinars.
Wow. This is a little
bro.
sneak from behind our own shroud of the businesses.
Indeed.
Wow.
Do you do them in character?
Yeah.
I bet you could do so much better with webinars if you did them in Cyrus Candor accents.
Yeah, I might scare people away, but in a good way.
Like, who the hell is this guy? It'd be even better if I did ads for my day-to-day business in Jorunn's accent. Would really scare people away.
I mean, if they can't handle me at my candor, they don't deserve me at my
Kurt. What's up, everybody? We can play music as we start here. Welcome back. No beer for me this week. I'm going to go nice cherry Coke. We got Jorunn the Jester. We got Pendel the Parser. We got Emblem Cyrus Candor. And checking in will also be Saw Sorrento. God, we love alliterations.
Yes, we do.
Katie will be joining us here shortly. Welcome back to a live table read of Behind the Shroud, a mystery novel from the Unfound Guys, written by Matt, proofread by me, edited by our editing team, and enjoyed in like at least a dozen states right now, which is pretty cool to think of.
Philosophical contributions contributed by Dylan.
I like it. No, welcome back. If you're joining us, throw in the comments. Who are you? Where are you at? What path are you walking right now in your life? Whether you're watching the this live or whether you're watching the replay. What are we doing today, Matt? We're going to probably dive right in. We don't have Evan this week. I'd love to give people an update on the children's book cover, our second children's book cover. And then, I mean, my thoughts as we dive right in, is there anything else you think we should touch base on when it comes to comics, animated series, children's books, novels?
Yeah, I think as I put some of the final touches on Harbinger too, I want to say this is my casting call for anybody who would like to be on this side of the screen with us in this lineup. We're going to be eventually doing this for Harbinger too, because I'm having so much fun doing this. And there's
Matt, there's a question already in the comments. Harbinger, what the heck is that? Some people, in the last year may have forgot what that was. What's Harbinger, man?
Harbinger is the origin story of how the planet of Bestunia is founded and brought to life. How we eventually get into the timeline where this story is happening, Behind the Shroud, and then beyond that, year 293, when Joan and the gang enter into the Unfound Tales Bestunia, the comic series.
Nice. So in the timeline of Bestunia, we have almost three. There she is. There's our lovely Saw. In the timeline of Bestunia, we have almost 300 years in this accounted for history. And at the very tail end of it, around 292, is where Joan and Artie are living with James. And that's where you see in the comics. And now we have our later back in the timeline, we have Jorunn the Jester, Pendel the Parser, and these two idiots getting into their own mischief. What year would it be in Behind the Shroud, which we'll be talking in today, Matt? Would you say roughly?
Yeah, 110.
Nice. So it's basically we're perfect at the very end, right in the middle at 110 almost. And then Harbinger takes place the very beginning, year
35. Yeah. But throughout the story, you jump backward in time and you kind of get a picture of the diaspora, like brand new planet. So you really follow from year 35 to year like probably 90 or so in what will eventually be a trilogy. The Harbinger itself is only year 35, in linear terms.
Okay, nice. So you're getting ready to finish up this original origin novel. It'll be a series.
Yeah.
And then
the original origin novel.
The original origin. I hate people that repeat themselves, and I hate redundancy. My two biggest pet peeves. They saw. So we're basically doing a casting call. Saw. Yep. If you want to play another character in an origin novel.
There are roughly 45 characters, and if we got anybody that can do like a dark Jason Statham, that'll really come in handy when we get the character. His name is Sig Scroffa.
Sounds perfect for me.
Also known as Sonk.
I don't think I can
know
do
somebody.
it Jason Statham, but
Oh.
I do have a range to an extent. It just depends on what you're looking for.
Oh, we'll find you a spot for sure. Your
Who do you
grandfather
think you're
then.
talking to, mate?
I mean, I played Snow White once, so like I can do the very
You can be nice too.
effeminate and flowery sort of thing.
Okay, yeah, that's like off-putting.
I do think I am stuck in one place creatively, which is basically Jorunn the Jester, Captain Jack Sparrow, and they're like the same person, to be honest. I'll even get confused on which one am I when I'm speaking for Jorunn. 40 people. So if you're out there, you like what we're doing, Matt, can we share this in the group, by the way? I completely forgot. I could be on.
I did.
Okay, cool. I thought I asked, but I didn't know for sure. If you're out there, if you're interested in doing one of these, I don't know about the rest of these three. I have zero experience, as you can probably tell, when it comes to voice acting.
Okay.
So if you're if you're like, hey, I want to give it a shot, I want to have some fun. We clearly have a good time here. Let us know on the Harbinger side. I'm very excited for that novel to come out. 518.
500, yeah, something like that. 520 pages. It'll be a lot. Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to break that up. But yeah, 45 characters. We already have cast Argus. Argus Aurelian is the main character, played by the guy who actually created Argus. A couple of years ago, I had reached out to him, or he was kind of in communication with us and wanting to create a character, and it was the perfect character for this sort of savior that we had planned all along. So he drew him up, which was an interesting challenge because I was like, I want him to be a savior. And Trey was like, yeah, he's footloose and fancy free, and he just likes to go out into the wilderness and dance around. I'm like, all right, we'll figure out how to turn that into a savior.
I actually think that's really interesting. I was talking to someone today, and for anyone that ends up watching this video, you're let's say you're following us on social, you're thinking of what your trope that you're living right now might be in your parenting journey, in your business building journey. It's just like, man, it's this trope of I am this new provider. I talked to a guy today, and he was like, I am diving into this selfishness in order to be selfless path in my life. He's like, I got to be the best version of me so I can be that for my team and my kids. And I was like, oh, that'd be an interesting person to write. So if you've thought of like, man, this would be an interesting trope, and you have ideas, give them to us. And if you trust us to make something out of it, we will. That is the joy of what we do at Unfound Adventures. So give us your ideas, and we'll see what we can do with it.
Perfect.
Unless you don't want to, then write your own damn book.
And if you happen to be in third grade watching this, then in Port Huron, good news. Dylan's coming to your school to not only take your tropes and help bring them to life, but teach you, young third grader, how to write your own stories. So, or you could just, come audit that class that day.
What a beautiful segue. We are now speaking at 5 elementary schools in the Michigan area, teaching kids the power of imagination and creativity to create their own calling. And if we have time, help them create their own Azigra in the world as well. So they know how to kind of battle their own inner challenges, chaos. Inner darkness, right? Inner chaos. I didn't want to say demons. So we have that coming down the pipe. And we have a second children's book coming down the pipe. Matt, if you want to get ready to share this, if you've been following us, you know that we do comics, we do novels, and we do children's books. We're getting ready to come out with a solo RPG. But for the children's books, we have finished our first book of The Adventures of Beck and Keith. If you have backed that Kickstarter, you should have your children's book by now. So if you're watching this and you don't, reach out to us. Sometimes issues happen. We'll make sure we get you those books. They're absolutely incredible. I got it, Matt.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got it. Don't worry about it. Look at those beautiful kids. That is my son, Keith. Beautiful. That is my friend's son, Beckett. We have created little Viking warriors for them. And we have had backers back our project to have their own kid personified in the next book of The Adventures of Beck and Keith. And if you were here last week, you saw Evan was working on one of the he was working on a cover. Can we zoom in, Matt? This is what he came up with. This guy is so good, Katie. Like, you get to work with him in like three companies. So we now get to see Beck and Keith running away from, you see in the background there, that is Luca, the light seer, and his gecko calling that protrudes light. He will be shining light in this dark area that originally scared Beck and Keith, and showing them the beauty beneath that darkness if they'd look a little bit further. So incredible. You can see
How detailed this is.
Keith and his little duck calling with 4 wings to the right of him. You can see Beck and his little tiger calling with multiple tails, Took, right there. And then you can see Luca the Lightseer in the back. That is for a backer of ours, Justin DeWitt. If he's watching, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for your support. We're excited to bring your son to life in our children's books.
Beautiful. Do you want to see where in the world they are?
Yeah. Could you imagine if I said no? We'd be in a really awkward part of this.
Okay. Well, too bad. So here's home. This is where Beck and Keith in that first book set sail with their parents out into the broken chain. And so as somewhere out here, we haven't even really determined which one of these is like this destination that they're sailing for. But on the way, they're going to meet a whole host of kids, your kids. My niece is one of them. Probably my son will be one of them at one point. And they all get named like Beck the Brave, Keith the Curious, Luca the Lightseer, Summit the Scholarly,
we have
the Harmonious.
We have Leo the Loved is going to be part of this. We have Declan the Defender, who will then put forth the lore of where defenders come from. And then we have one more, Josie. We haven't thought of a name for Josie yet. But they live in all of these different islands that Beck and Keith will be traveling to on their Viking ship.
Fun fact, this little character here does happen to make an appearance in the story that we are reading for today. We won't show him today, but it does appear later.
Excited for this. That being said, man, should we jump in? How many chapters are we reading today? We're already 12 minutes in. Holy poop.
Well, let's go for 4, and if it's 3, then that's okay too. We're going to go 8, 9, 10, maybe 11.
Awesome. 8, 9, 10, 11. I did put 8 through 12, but that means we're getting to 12. I actually wrote up a little bit of a kind of like an entry point. Can I read from that and then we dive in?
Yeah.
Yes. Thanks, Matt. 1 second. Thanks for giving me this. So what has happened so far in the story of Behind the Shroud? Murder is afoot. There has been another murder in Lucidus. A 10-foot tall jester is the suspect and is on the loose with 3 callings to boot. The Beacon of Order has called in a detective known throughout the land to help in the hunt, but he's not so sure they have the true culprit. What's the jester think about all of this? And will he be apprehended willingly? You can only find out today. So we have seen Pendelv the Parser walk into this town very mysteriously with 3 callings. In this town, there has been 10 so far, Matt, murders. 10 murders. You're muted, just a heads up. There has been 10 murders. And while he is in town, one of his callings sees this half dog, half cow rip through a town, destroy a bunch of stuff, and then leave. And this rough and tough, trigger-happy emblem, Cyrus Candor, also sees this mess. He rushes to his Beacon of Order, who is the sheriff around these parts, Saw Sorrento, telling him that, hey, it's Jorunn the Jester. I've seen his beast, and it's time we hang this man. In comes Pendelv the Parser and says, you know what? I don't know if I fully buy it. Him and Cyrus Candor kind of butt heads, and Saw Sorrento's like, yo, I've seen enough. I have so much pressure on these shoulders. We got to go get this jester. And that's kind of where we left off, right?
We got to go get this jester.
Is that correct?
That's where we left off. Yep.
Awesome. So then today we've kind of seen a bit of Jorunn. We've seen him kind of deal with these shroud hounds. actually take a Shroud Hound off of another character and take it on himself, almost like sucking his life force. So we see kind of the heart he has, but he's still into the thick of all this. So now the very first chapter we're going to read is chapter 8. If you're following along in your book, feel free to come out to chapter 8. It's called In Lieu of Gallows. And Matt, if you want to do like anything going into this that we need to know from the author.
That was great. No, you covered it. Let's dive in.
Cool. In Lieu of Gallows, reading for Jorunn. Here we go. Chapter 8, In Lieu of Gallows. An hour later, the first whispers of daylight wandered out of the woods. The sky raised harbingers of storm, announcing the day in prescient scarlet. Elephantine thunderheads marched in procession from whence the weather came. This will be an unprecedented day, Jorunn told a tree, stroking its papery bark. The jester tossed a rock up and down in each hand. In his left was a single round hagstone forged from tumbled limestone, and in his right he held his new treasure, which he had cracked open in a flamboyant ceremony with as his witness. When it came to matters of discovery, was much better audience than his fellows. Emberlight, Emberlight! Flared its mushroom cap in celebration, releasing a haze of twinkling spores. What a day already! You think they've forgotten about what Adder did? You haven't heard, right? You've been asleep this whole time, you kook. He ruined a town. He made a town a ruin. He made a ruin. That sounds like an accomplishment to say it like that. Well done, Adder. You made a ruin. But actually, not so good. I fear we have more explaining to do than they have the patience to listen. But look at this morning. The jester croaked. The jester looked up at the sky and began to croak songfully. When the crimson comes when you sleep, don't frown. What do you gain with a brood? If worries rise and words come cheap, don't drown. Be tight-lipped and shrewd. When hair stands and you're on the steep, get down, or your noodle will be stewed. When your clothes get wet and your shoes go squeak, you clown. What could be better for your mood? The song lifted Jorunn's spirits. At present, they needed lifting. He knew all too well the forces he meddled with. He knew what kind of person the water beaking of order was. They had been raised together, sought advancement in the hierarchy of the Water Eldweiser Pandit family, and found themselves aligned in mission throughout their childhoods, albeit rarely did they find themselves aligned in philosophy. The beacon ruled without tolerance for error. She demanded order and had proven herself quite effective at quelling lawlessness. She viewed humanity as inherently hierarchical structure, where those who behaved properly naturally rose to become leaders. She considered unruliness to be a sort of sickness, and sickness could be cured, should one be subjected to the right medicine. This included a healthy dose of fear and exposure to public deterrence. If one knew the swift, unfettered justice that awaited them, should they err, they might think twice about breaking the law. Only judgment was not strictly reserved for the lawbreakers, but bled onto the misunderstood. Oddity, anything that deviated from normalcy, became punishable by whatever means necessary. At best, one faced alienation. At worst, at the word of the beacon, one faced the gallows. Unfortunately for Jorunn, he was not only odd, but also guilty of a hefty amount of vandalism. It didn't take a genius to predict what lay in store for him. The jester knew the beacon would see him as a valuable example. Venus, I've made a decision, Jorunn called to his firefox beast, who remained hard at work, much like a raccoon cleaning its food. The gossamer strands of aura with which the calling tinkered had taken form. That was a tough one. Can I say it again? The gossamer strands of aura with which the calling tinkered had taken form. Venus brandished a slender bar of white substance that resembled bone, like chalkstone. Though it appeared white, close inspection revealed ribbons of blue and flakes of green. Jorunn had used chalkstone a few times before for its paint-like property when melted. It served the pasty man with bright red hair to cloak himself in more subtle colors. From time to time, it served the pasty man with bright red hair to cloak himself in more subtle colors from time to time. Connection. That is a tactful intention to infuse, I reckon. You three will be taken away beyond a feasible cognitive range, and then some. If they're smart, they'll lock you up. If they're wise, they'll restrain you with more than a lock and key. Surely they'll believe that distance is enough. My performance will aid that illusion. Alas, it will not be completely performative, or the plan won't work, will it? I said cognitive range, it was connective range, right?
It was connective range, but why don't you tell those viewers what is connective range? What does that even mean?
Yeah, so how we set this world up, thank you for clapping, Candor. I saw no claps. When we set up this world, what we realize is like this calling is your totem, right? It's kind of like your spirit beast that's at your side at all times, reminding you what you're put on this earth for. And typically people will receive anywhere from 1 to 3, depending on what type of path they're walking in life. But that path is supposed to stay with them at all times, right? This calling is right next to them. So it can't really go away. Very similar to if anyone's seen His Dark Materials. Like you can't really be separated from your, do they call it daemon or demon? I know it goes back and forth. Is it daemon?
Or.
Yeah. I'm going to go daemon because I think it sounds sexier. They can't be separated from their daemon. Similar in this world, there's a connective range that someone can have with their calling. Like my calling could go run around, 50 yards from me, maybe 100. But if you can consistently go past that, it almost messes with someone's mind, right? They're being literally ripped from a calling. You're making fun of me in the private chat, aren't you? You're making fun of me.
Not at all. I said you're a big Daemon Targaryen fan, clearly.
Big guy. That's what she sent when I was talking. So being taken out of connective range is almost a way to like immobilize someone, right? They kind of get into this state of like shock. They don't know what to do. It's like this mania that they go through because their calling's been taken from them. So connective range is the distance in which your calling can be apart from you. And the more connection you have with them, the further it can be, but everybody has their limits. Is that the best way to describe it?
That's great. Yeah, I love it. So you are the basis for Jorunn the Jester, correct? You as human, Dylan.
Thank you.
On wibbly wobbly Earth.
Earth.
And your callings that you see in your own life, that you actually like participate in life with, not just in like this fantasy, all right, now I'm going to go work on Bastunia stuff, but like when you're washing the dishes or when you're playing hockey or when you're playing with your son. Those folks that are coming into the story having missed the introduction of the callings, can you give a quick intro to Adder and Venus?
Yeah. And this is going to be, Katie, something new for you to learn about me. I actually go to work and envision sitting on this is my builder calling. So we talk about there's 3 paths. There's 3 types of callings in the world of Bastunia. There's builders, those that seek to create, leave a legacy. There's explorers, those that seek adventure and crave wonder. And there are defenders, those that seek simplicity and, kind of crave and cherish love. And they protect the simple stuff in their life. So the ones that I've created for myself is what you see in the story. My explorer calling is a giant mushroom mixed with a kangaroo and a peacock because I'm very flashy, and we won't talk about the other ones. It's how I explore and see the world through my mind and through my soul. My builder calling is Venus, which is this little red panda mixed with a kitsune. So think of a red panda if it had 8 tails instead of 9, but at the end of each of those tails kind of has little paws to do its work in its mischievous ways. That's me and my builder, kind of weird, uncomfortable, awkward as we grow. I like to be that awkward fool in front. And then Adder, which would be my defender calling, is the one that leveled the town, is this half dog, half Highland coup that has all these rocks kind of plated on its body like armor. Because I'm a huge rock hound. I have so many rocks in my house, and I tumble them. It's ridiculous. And I literally imagine when I go to hockey, like behind the net that I'm a goalie in, I picture Adder sitting there. When I go to work, I picture, because for me, like having a symbolism for what I'm doing lights me up rather than being like, oh, I guess I have to be a business consultant today. Like that's boring. But if I'm thinking of Venus behind me juggling all these tasks that I have to do, it makes it more fun for me.
Yeah. And I think you don't solely have to rely on yourself. You know, you can kind of look over in your imagination. There's Adder, there's whoever, you have a companion. Yeah. You have support. I love it. Okay. Anything you want to share on this chapter before we move on to chapter 9?
The thing I like about it is I think, again, we just see this innocent idiot as people are coming after him. He's stroking a tree and being like, this is going to be an unprecedented day. What a day. Gosh, this is fun. He's singing a song as people are coming for his head. I see myself in the character. No, man. So now I'm excited to see like why they're coming for him.
He's like a jolly Shrek.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right. So move on. Chapter 9, the 11th victim. The beacon spoke the truth about everyone having a role to play. Conveniently, Pendelv's investigation beyond Jorunn began with Jorunn. Laying eyes on the peculiar man whose calling had destroyed so much of Lucidus would answer many of his lingering questions. So when the company of emblems, led by the beacon herself, marched up the pine needle-laden road toward where the jester was last seen, the parser walked with them. Chugach came along, but the detective had other roles in mind for Smitha and Luke. Over the years, Pendelv discovered there were times to hide his beasts and times to show them. Those like Candor, young, confident, assertive, boasted their callings like muscles. They bared tooth and nail, showcased their masteries, and held nothing back. That line of thinking flowed naturally from Saw's deterrent philosophy. There were times for shows of force, though scarce. To the youth, the world had yet to exist beyond their own conceptions. Thoughts of enemies far superior in size and skill, or problems solved through tact and tenderness had yet to occur. As a rule, the emblems shared one primary tool, force, functional for an arrest, but little else. Because of this, they found themselves ill-equipped for the first of many challenges they would face that day. A trader's cart blocked the road. It lay on its side, its fares scattered helter-skelter. As they approached, they saw no sign of a person or a beast.
Be aware of an ambush,
Candor cautioned the others. His calling, Nipper, raised its scales and ballooned its dewlap, as it had done when confronting Pendelv earlier. Candor signaled to a fellow emblem, a man with an avian beast, to go ahead and inspect. The company moved to protect Saw, not sparing a single thought for the detective. And for good reason. Chugach ran ahead. While the emblems' callings hung back and waited for the all-clear, the antlered wolf rushed in. Though Chugach's confidence played like bravery to their companions, this was just a convenient veneer. The parser had already assessed the situation and deemed it a genuine crisis. A career spent venturing the continent came with innumerable emergencies and a handful of bona fide ambushes, so he learned how to spot the differences. Though not concerned about an ambush, Pendelv was afraid, just not for himself. In the last 20 minutes, they had passed a dozen better places to stage an ambush. The charging Lauren lay behind a row of thick, thorny brush, on the left-hand side of the road, and on the right lay an ample clearing. In many places along the road, evergreens, cliffs, the river, or other natural obstructions created an ideal choke point for an ambush, but not here. This spot would be ideal for a trader to set up shop and sell to all comers and goers. Beyond that, the cart lay on its side in a mess of wares. An ambush often included bait, but not smashed urns of salt, potash, and washing soda. The value that could be extracted from the average passerby paled in comparison with the value of those goods, making its destruction counterproductive. By itself, that could suggest simple-minded bandits, which did not elevate the risk in Pendel's mind. Good bait may be an injured woman, a lamed calling, or an earnest-looking child. Judging by the green corrosion on the cart's metal hubs and axles, the cuttings of wild desert rose, and the regionally specific goods, this trader had been heading to Lucidus from the environs around Lake Prism. Chugach came around the cart and confirmed the parser's fears. The crumbled, pallid figure solved the case of the missing trader. Not missing, but drained of being. He sat with his back up against a tree, looking almost peaceful, if not for the glazed vacancy behind his eyes. The long shafts that once hitched his calling to the cart had been fractured like bones. Its absence made the trader's lifelessness near conclusive.
Don't touch him!
A short, blotchy emblem named Newt called out. I want to be sure, Pendel said, more in the name of thoroughness than uncertainty.
You'll get more evidence than you bargained for.
Beacon Saw said urgently.
You'll be next. This man has been poisoned.
Pendelv had not seen any toxic orange sludge. Though he did detect a trace of sulfur in the air, he attributed that to the caustic grime that coated the cart's chassis. He stood tall and looked around to be sure. This is what it looks like?
Sure is,
Candor answered. Someone touches a bit of that orange goo, and then it's a slow walk into oblivion, the parser asked. These types of questions got people talking. With language steeped in ambiguity, hinging on elementary, some over-eager emblem would jump at the opportunity to clarify. Even more effective was to confidently propose a false theory. The only thing emblems like these enjoyed more than status was telling someone how wrong they were.
something like that.
Candor said with relish.
That, or they drink the wrong water, eat the wrong fruit, touch the wrong corpse.
Pendelv bit his lip, noting an abnormality in the boy's delivery. He nodded, pretending to accept the information without question. Yet, to the parser's ears, it sounded like speculation. Emblem Candor, unaccustomed to being challenged and allowed to stretch his certainty beyond the facts, had built a house confidently on sand. How many is that now?
This makes 11.
Saw answered. The scene resembled the aftermath of a contagion more than poisoning. Before Pendelv could think better of it, he found himself saying, It's spreading. Candor clapped his hands together angrily.
Jorunn will hang for this.
The beacon already decreed his death for the destruction of Lucidus, Pendelv said. A man only has one life to give. A pity's one's jurisdiction does not extend to the afterlife, he added, hiding his sarcasm well.
Don't be so sure.
Saw said.
Technically, this man has 4 lives to give, if justice is to be extracted properly.
A shiver ran up Pendelv's spine. The beacon's voice cut like ice. She spoke so calmly, so coolly, despite her torturous implications. The disorder in her own backyard weighed heavily on her, for this woman had become pregnant with vile ideas. The parser was reminded that everyone has a sleeping barbarian in them, not buried so deeply beneath the surface. Candor licked his lips.
I can hardly wait for Jester to be roped to Nipper's back.
Well, about that.
Emblem Newt said with doubt. He was a short man with a narrow face and a stringy mustache. He recoiled under the heat of Candor's scowl.
He's big.
Newt is right. He is big.
Saw agreed.
Freakishly.
Newt added.
No match for the 10 of us.
Candor said confidently.
And Nipper has carried larger loads than your minds can fathom.
From there, the conversation devolved into valorous banter. They had their man, and they were bent on issuing justice, or their version of justice. None of them struggled to reconcile two things that Pendel felt to be in conflict. The motives behind Adder's rampage and the subtlety of slow poison ran counter to one another. Most perpetrators operated with a steady pathology. Blundering and stealth did not often go hand in hand, just as an owl does not screech when it hunts for field mice. The beacon and her emblems had swiftly chosen madness as an explanation, and perhaps they were right. It was an explanation, and rudimentary enough for the simplest minds to understand. Jorunn did appear to be at the center of everything, yet in previous cases the parser could be linked to crime in much the same fashion. When hunting criminals, one often finds themselves in the center of the action. To the untrained eye, prevention looks strikingly similar to guiltiness. Left to his own devices, Pendel would sooner issue a stay of execution. The jester might be guilty, but he also might be involved for a different reason. While Saul had a vested interest in preserving order, the parser's unbiased interest remained fixed in uncovering the truth. To that end, following his instincts rarely failed him. Pendel, the parser, acknowledged the day could go a number of ways. Either they captured a madman and put an end to his illogical crime spree, or they merely peeled back another layer of a much more complex scenario. Pendel's instincts pointed him toward the latter. They told him this case was still a long way from being solved.
A true parser. A true parser. All right,
Well
so
done,
chapter 9, these guys are going after this 10-foot tall idiot, and they come across this broken down wagon that people are selling things out of, and they come across an 11th victim.
Yeah.
Parser checks the whole thing. Emblem, Cyrus, Candor, clearly ready to kill this man. Same with Saw. Dude,
Yeah.
I actually did have chills when you said don't be so sure this man has 4 lives to give.
I think the subtle difference is that Candor is more than willing to kill this man. Saw is looking to execute this man and make him pay for the crimes that he has committed.
I mean, as the beacon of order,
I like that.
we even saw that right in the last chapter of like she needs to make a showing out of this, and even if like you're walking off the beaten path, not only is Jorunn odd, he's now in charge of what they think are 11 murders.
There was a Moida.
Anything you wanted to show in this when it comes to Pendelv, Matt? Because like we have this instant where you have a young, brash, like trigger happy man rushing to conclusion, and you have Pendelv more of like this scoping out a situation.
You know, this was a chapter that I honestly, the characterization in it is like almost hard for me to stomach, because there's just like blatant gaps from Pendelv's perspective, Saw and Candor's logic, and I think Katie/Saw hit it right on the head. Like Candor, they're not even looking at clues. Like this guy just wants to take somebody down. It's like a big game hunt for him in a sense. I can't wait to have the jester rope to Nipper's back. Like he's carried more larger loads than your minds can fathom. What a line. And so I think it sort of just you get rid of all logic at this point, and that speaks volumes to Candor's character. And even the beacon, I think the nature of the crime is such that like maybe the most logical conclusion would be there's like just a contagion happening, like a little bit of a pandemic of some sort. Can't really explain it, but why does someone need to be hanged for this? Can it just be that there's an illness going around? And it doesn't seem like that is good enough for them. And Jorunn, obviously his presence in the story, having been seen around the victims, having rampaged through Lucidus, does add a layer of complexity. They're like given a suspect, but it always just like bothered me. It's like you're ignoring the facts. That's why I think I'm playing Pendel.
Does it feel good to play a character, Kurt, that's just like, yeah, I'm in for the hunt, dude. Screw all these clues.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm out for blood.
Really, your inner Statham.
Exactly.
Good for you,
My deep dark Statham.
Every time you come in and speak with your voice, I can't help but smile. Keep it up, man. Keep it up. This will be fun. We get to see both of these guys, not in this next chapter, but in 2 chapters from now, right? So we can dive right in.
We get to see, so we're moving into scouting, chapter 10, and this is Pendelv and Jorunn in this one. The next opportunity that we'll get to see.
Oh no! And then we just got Jorunn, Saw, and Pendelv. So Kandor is done. Unfortunately, no more Statham today. As I say with everybody, Emblem Cyrus Kandor, you have played an amazing part today. Thank you so much. If you want to bounce now that you've done your role, you can. If you'd like to stay and listen, you can totally do that too.
I think you had a hard stop coming up, so I understand if you got to go.
Yeah, I got a hard stop at 4, so I still got like 20 minutes. So
all right,
I'm good to stick around, hang out for a bit.
Sweet. Good, man. Because as soon as you're done reading lines, 75% of the audience gets up and leave. It's like post Super Bowl after Kendrick Lamar. They're like, all right, turn your TV off.
Statham's gone. This isn't fun anymore.
No offense, Saw.
I was making fun of myself, if it helps.
Got it. All right. Scouting. Chapter 10. Let's dive into this.
I'm ready.
Chapter 10. Scouting. Luke picked up a pungent scent at the collapsed boathouse and followed it to the south side of the Lauren River. The calling traced the unmistakable reek a couple leagues upriver. At the confluence where two forks returned to one, the trail disappeared into the water. It moved in the direction of an island karst formed by years of diligent erosion. As far as places went, the island left much to be desired. For a camp, however, one would struggle to find better. The arrowhead-shaped formation would be ideal for anyone looking to go about their business without being disturbed. He was here, Pendelv spoke inside his beast's mind. Luke lifted its nose and detected smoke, or still is. The Cayman beast climbed up a sturdy loblolly pine, honed in on the direction of the fire, and made haste. Time was of the essence. A wall of rain moved in from the west. Luke knew it was easier to lose a trail in a storm. The rain did unpredictable things to tracks and smells. Someone with an experience remaining hidden, especially if he had 3 uniquely equipped beasts, could be gone in a flash. If Jorunn had a pilot, he could be here one moment and absent the next, vanished into the sky. Though, from the look of it, Jorunn did not care about hiding. Luke spotted him in a clearing, looking far too relaxed for someone with a mob of emblems on his trail. He sat on a rock next to a small cook fire, over which bubbled a kettle of white goop. A red, 8-tailed beast removed the kettle with one tail, stirred the waxy substance with a stick held by another, before handing it over to the oversized jester. At once, the man went to work, covering himself in the still hot substance.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
He hollered as he coated a paint-like layer onto his arms. After a moment, he changed his tune.
Yeah, that's good,
he exclaimed, before scooping up another handful and returning to his frenetic yelps of pain.
Ow! Yeah!
He is mad. Luke watched until he began stripping off his clothing in order to coat his hidden places. In the name of privacy, the beast turned away, using the time to move closer to camp. It found a better vantage on the ground in a grove of ferns to assess the man more closely. Pendelv's stealthy calling exercised its chameleon camouflage, embodying the varied colors of its surrounding, making itself near invisible. Moving slowly, not without fear, Luke got itself into a position at the edge of camp. Adder slept nearby, and while the bovine hound appeared docile, the detective's disguised beast knew better. Eventually, Jorunn, now as white as ghostly birch bark, settled down next to the fire again, seemingly pleased with himself.
Are you sure this is waterproof?
He asked his small firefox beast. He scooped the last of the goop out of the kettle and smoothed it onto his forehead.
Trusting each other might be the last thing we ever do.
The thunderheads that coasted down from the Boundary Mountains arrived spitting sheets of cold rain. Lightning followed, and then came the ominous rumblings of its counterpart. The sky darkened as voluminous thunderheads blotted out the sun. Adder rose, as did the jester's third beast. Until it stood on its haunches, Luke had misidentified it as a boulder. It had a gray, broad, sweeping head the shape of a mushroom cap, complete with a gilly underside. It also had a long, feathery plumage, which Luke had mistaken for a patch of wildflowers. The beast lumbered lazily toward Adder, where it kindly sheltered the entirety of its shaggy, stone-armored companion. I've never seen such beasts, Pendelv spoke within Luke, unable to help himself. The parser and his callings had seen some strange things in their travels across the continent. In no wasteland at the Colosseum where beasts and men fight one another for sport, they witnessed a calling who could shapeshift parts of its body into anything one could conceive, though limited to a few natural materials. Stranger still, in the far north, in a village outside the Earth Temple, they discovered a calling that could assume the appearance of anyone it had met. The simulacra convinced, unless one looked closely at the eyes. A calling's eyes and a human's eyes possessed a different tinge of life. Few things had affected the parser more than tracking down a beast that, when cornered, became him. When a case drew Pendelv out to the sea, to the archipelago known as Broken Chain, rarely a day went by without seeing something novel. Even as he solved the case, he remained for an academic purpose, logging in extraneous detail each and every ability he discovered. Over time, a catalog took form. It neatly divided Calling's abilities into 4 parts, which Pendelv the parser named disciplines. The 4 disciplines were creation, talent, transformation, and auric. Simply put, creation involved the beast making something. The talent discipline consisted of special skills. Transformation allowed beasts to transfigure themselves. While every living thing possessed aura, the auric masteries allowed one to access and influence said energy. Both creation and talent could be further divided into internal and external, based on whether the ability expressed itself within the beast or without. Internal talents revolved around the mind and spirit, such as emotional acuity, a photographic memory, or perfect recall. External talents showcased themselves in reality, like speed, strength, or the ability to rapidly burrow, as in Luke's case. Internal creations, such as Smith's ability to regenerate itself, belonged to those callings who could make materials within or of themselves. This differed from external creation by where the source matter was derived. In Smith's case, the matter came from within, whereas those callings with external creation sourced it from their environment. Transformation could also be divided into 2 parts, natural and shapeshift. Natural transformation meant the beast could turn parts in its whole into naturally occurring elements like water or granite. Shapeshift allowed the beast the versatility of resembling anything it could conceive of on the outside. From the parser's limited run-in with shifters, one who turned itself into a tree or fence or cactus would still bleed if struck, rendering the change more illusory than its counterpart. Luke's keen ability to camouflage itself belonged in this category. Auric disciplines defied the neat dualism by having 3 divisions: control, transmission, and projection. Auric control manifested with great diversity, but the rules were simple. The beast thusly gifted could manipulate forces within a limited boundary, over a finite duration of time, determined by their stamina and the strength of their connection. In all iterations of Auric control, it manifested as an area of influence, most commonly spherical, but disruptible by physical obstruction. For instance, should Chugach raise electric fog inside a cave, its voltaic influence would adapt to its cavernous container. It was uncommon, but not impossible for Auric control to extend through barriers. Auric transmission, also known as the healer's gift, allowed a beast to single out one recipient to whom it could transmit regenerative aura. While charitable, transmission was also the most dangerous of the Auric masteries, as the aura transmitted was proffered of oneself. Naturally, transmission was not limited to pure healing aura. With enough practice, one thusly equipped could transmit thoughts, ideas, feelings, or any information presently available within one's auric body. Auric projection, the mastery favored by marksmen, granted its possessor the ability to throw energy in packets ranging from small projectiles to deadly plasmic missiles. While easily chalked up as the mastery of brutes, it could also be utilized in delicate procedures and minimally invasive surgeries. Pendelv called the 9 abilities masteries. When he published his catalog, it coined both terms, disciplines and masteries, for the academic community. Whenever he returned home, it would be to an inbox brimming with fan mail. For every 9 letters he got expressing thanks for his research or proclaiming that his insights on masteries helped them unlock previously elusive self-knowledge, One arrived renouncing his efforts as wrong, reductive, inconclusive, or claiming exception. More common than faults in the mechanics of his catalog were disparities in language, which led to failures in understanding. While the parser remained open to expansion, even desirous of outliers, years of detailed claims against him only strengthened his dataset and its validity. In the stand of ferns, Luke did not dare move. The boulder turned fungus beast was enormous. For that matter, so was the man. For all the intimidation Adder warranted, the bovine hound was only the third tallest in the bunch. The man stood a head taller, towering over 10 feet, and the gray mushroom-capped, peacock-feathered monster rose twice that. It stood as tall as Smitha, though possessing none of its branch-like lankiness. The emblems had mentioned the man's notable size, but nothing could have prepared Pendel through his beast's eyes for the reality. The beacon's comment about her witnessing Jorunn descending from the sky while juggling, using his billow-headed beast as a parachute, now took on a different note. The humor in it was overshadowed by marvelous horror. The parser and his calling could only guess at their masteries.
Adder, adder, adder. My headstrong adder.
Jorunn said.
How interesting. Inspecting, eh? A curious energy. Afraid, but likely to run if confronted. That's a good assessment. Where, you say? In the ferns? Camouflaged. That explains why you can see it and I cannot.
Luke's cold blood went colder. The beast willed itself to flee. Wait. Pendel overrode his beast. It remained fixed in place.
Most impressive. I see. A strange beast. We can see you. We mean you less harm than you mean to us, I reckon. Though we are not concerned by that fact. You see us here, minding our own beeswax. Connection-infused white chalkstone, to be exact. Perfectly waterproof, as Venus says. You can show yourself. Trust me when I tell you we are friendly. Time ought to reveal that truth in full. I cannot blame your hesitations, of course. From your perspective, I would also have my doubts. It says a lot that you would come and meet us, rather than let loose your horde, or subject us to the beacon's unpleasantries. Who are you? I'm speaking to the person behind your eyes now. A visitor. Not from the water pandit. I know that much. You're in my nape of the neck, you know.
Luke dropped the camouflage and stepped out of the ferns.
Most impressive indeed.
Jorunn complimented. Adder huffed. The jester went on.
Adder saw you the other night. You were in the town square.
Adder huffed a second time and then lowered its head all the way to the ground to rub its face in the dirt.
That's an apology. Adder tells me you nearly got mixed up in the fight. No doubt you found us by following that stinking, smelling sour stench. It is inconquerable. It is unconquerable, is it not? Say, was anyone hurt? Adder asks me to ask you. In fact, the beast pleads. I also admit to a burning curiosity. Houses can easily be made anew, you know, and gallows rebuilt. But regrettably, people are so wonderfully fragile.
No casualties. Luke scattered the raindrops off its face, side to side.
That's a relief. However, the beacon is coming for me, isn't she?
Luke shook its head the other way, up and then down.
Mean-spirited woman.
Luke repeated the gesture.
Aha! And do you travel with them?
The large lizard beast lifted and lowered its head a third time. Jorunn squinted into the blue eyes of Pendel's beasts, all the way to the man who watched from within them.
You haven't decided which side you're on, have you, bub? Well, seeing is believing. Until that time, I won't expect any leeway. Hang me if you must, but do me one solid favor, will you? Don't do it until the sun comes out. Dead man's request.
Luke, Pendelv by proxy, nodded in agreement once more. He was not one to deny such a request. Such pleas carried weight that imperiled those who denied them. Still, it was not the nature of the request that hastened Luke's nod, nor the way he made it. With his genuine glee and agreeable smile, the jester's light-hearted demeanor invited friendship of all things. Far be it from Pendelv to make friends with a known vandal and the primary suspect in a series of murders. No, as Luke nodded, swirling about the purser lived a simple emotion, the one that drove him more than any other. Not pity or duty or charity, but curiosity.
Scene.
Whew.
That was a longer one, man. How you doing? You're coughing through that.
I know. It was longer. I just forgot about that whole part. You know, when you peel away from the story for a second to like give a little bit of exposition, I think I just look past it.
I'm curious on Sorrento / KDK's thoughts here. If like it is a part of the story where it's like, yeah, we peel away and we go down a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I understand masteries. Like I understand the 9 masteries we're creating in our lore. Is it helpful as a reader, if you recall, I know it's a long part, to be able to hear all the powers of these callings that Pendelv's been like recording?
I think they're all, insofar as like calling powers and kind of the whole world and how it works and everything else, I think it's really nicely seasoned in throughout this, which is what I prefer. I don't want to be handed a packet to read before a story.
Mm-hmm.
I want to find out partway through the things, as it becomes a little more relevant, and it's nicely sprinkled through there, so it helps me out.
Yeah. I think it's a cool thing too. You'll see it in some like manga. It's like it'll be like sprinkled throughout the story where it's like an open loop. And then in between chapters, it's like, hey, here's in this case, like Pendelv's research notes. And you can feel like you're going a little bit deeper into the story. I dig it, Matt, just because I think it'll allow some kid reading this to be like, ooh, which one would I be?
Yeah. Well, you are that kid still.
Me, still. I was curious. I'm like, wait, I picked right, didn't I?
But there's nothing wrong with the lore drop. I'm saying too. Just
Right.
it's the information is nicely placed. It's not doesn't smack you in the face right as you're getting into it.
And then that's it, right? It's like you have a place for it, and it's seated in certain areas. Like we'll talk about Venus's auric transmission coming up. So like it reaffirms, like, oh, okay, cool. Let me go back to it. Let me understand. And it's what Pendelv does, right? It's like it's his mindset of like cataloging this stuff.
For sure. I think that's the big note right there is we're in Pendelv's mind. We're following Luke. We're trailing a guy who we've already seen him conduct 2 masteries in one beast quite skillfully, which is something that's heavily reserved for more advanced callings, like having awakened a second mastery in one beast. And so he's just like wary, he's a little bit afraid of what might happen.
I dig this. And it's again, we see this idiot coating himself in white wax, yelling, and then loving it, and then yelling again. And we have no idea what he's up to. And then again, he like takes these newcomers in so easily. It's like, is this the bad guy? Is this not the bad guy? Because there's a lynch mob after him. That's actually the name of the next chapter. My question is, for timing at 5 p.m. Eastern, Saw, how are we doing for time? Pendelv, how are we doing for time? You and I still have to film a couple of YouTube videos after.
Yeah.
I have some Dungeons and Dragons to get to at some point this evening, whenever possible.
Do we want Matt to call it here? We see these two meet. We see there's a lynch mob after him. Next week, if Saw can make it, we get to see the lynch mob coming. And do they get Jorunn? Do they not get Jorunn?
It works well if we
functional car. I'm good.
Nice. Matt, thoughts here? You cool to stop here?
Yeah, we can stop here. I saw you appear in the next 3 chapters, or 3 out of the 4 of the next chapters. So we'll need you for the next bit. I think you may actually get a break in the following week, perhaps. So that could work out well.
Love it. Man, anyone that came, these hours go fast. Matt and I always talk, we're like, yeah, we're only doing read along, so it'll probably be like a half hour to be a short week. And then we start talking between chapters because we're talking about something that we love, and it takes a full hour, if not more. So anyone that tunes in, whether it's live or on the replay, man, we appreciate you. This is why we're building this. People reaching out and saying, we love what you're doing. Katie thanks you. Matt thanks you. I thank you. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. If you are living your own trope and you're like, I wonder what this would look like in a fantasy world. I've never thought myself a writer. Feel free to reach out to us. Tell us about it. We'd love to learn more and see if it can fit into our world like these characters have. And as always, we have more stuff coming out, children's books, an origin novel, working on a solo RPG, and more comics. So stay tuned for more. Any final words from y'all? I know I'm the talker.
If you would like to be cast as one of the many characters, all you just comment Harbinger on this video, on the stream, on YouTube, wherever you're watching it, and we'll catch that and reach out.
And if you're curious of how that's spelled, I just put it because I thought Harbinger when I first read it, and even though there's no second R, it's Harbinger. It looks like that. And if that's you, and if you'd like to be in a future book, let us know. As always, we appreciate you. We'll see you next week for a couple more chapters from Behind the Shroud. Take care, everybody.